Hey, it's me, back here for another episode of Merlo's Movie Massacre. And we got our first guest on the show today. We've got Dave McRae. Let's just add him here. Hey, Dave. Hopefully everybody can see you and hear you.
It says, oh, there we go. I think now they can hear. Now they can hear me.
There we go. I might need to change the orientation here. Oh, I don't like that either.
That's all right. Take your time.
That's what we had before. I don't know why it changed on me. My first time having guests on here. So we've got Dave McRae and Bruce Dale, the filmmakers behind It's Me, Billy, with me tonight. So thank you guys for coming on my show tonight. I really appreciate that.
Thank you for having us on.
Yeah, no problem. It's great to be here.
Yeah. Well, it's really awesome to have you guys on. And Dave, like I said before to you, that I've been watching you since about 2017. You were definitely probably one of the YouTubers that inspired me to want to do this myself. Was always talking about doing a movie show on YouTube.
And here you are.
I am now. Actually, here I am doing it.
and I'm part of the first guests. That's
yeah. You guys, 38 episodes in, I finally got guests on the show.
It's full circle.
Something I definitely want to do more for sure. And to have you guys as my first ever guest is pretty cool. See, we got a few people in the chat already. If any of you guys in the chat have any questions, don't hesitate to ask them. But we'll save your guys' questions till the end. As I've got my own questions I want to ask these guys too.
Cool.
So, It's Me, Billy is on YouTube. It's been on YouTube for about a month now. YouTube and Vimeo.
Correct.
And last I checked, it was over 20,000 views. So that's pretty awesome. You guys feel pretty good about that at this point?
Yeah, 100%. I think we're getting close up to, I think it's about 25,000 views in about the month.
It's 24,900, I think. So
we'll
hit.
Awesome.
We're close to 25,000, which I think is pretty good for a Black Christmas film.
Black Christmas, exactly.
You know,
yeah.
That's yeah.
I think I saw one other Black Christmas fan film on YouTube, and it was like made with the phone.
Right.
Right.
So it's like, there's lots of Friday the 13th fan films and lots of Halloween fan films. In fact, you made a few of those, haven't you, Dave?
I did. Yes.
Were you guys both involved in those, or?
Some of them, yeah. Bruce was a part of some of them. Bruce was a part of, Halloween Red Harvest, the Haddonfield Reaper, Halloween the Night He Came Back. Now these are not like, professionally shot in terms of the filmmaking process. They're just us trying to keep our creative. We are creative people, so we need to exert the creative energy somehow. But because we understand film and we still did the best we could with what we had to try and create something cool. So it's always it looks good, but it's I've been doing the first Halloween fan film I did was in 2009. When there really were no Halloween fan films on. I mean, there were Halloween fan films, if you shot it on like VHS or on High 8, but there were very few Halloween fan films on YouTube. Like that wasn't a thing back then. And I got a mask, the Fear mask from Cemetery Gate Productions. And it was at that time the quintessential Halloween one mask to get. Now there's so many, but that was like, oh my God, So I got that and I put on the jumpsuit and I walked around my house just in dimly lit light and doing dumb stuff. There was no narrative to it. It was just look at me in these different, scenarios, dressed as Michael. And then the final thing was me pretending to come through a door or something like that, and I put the camera down low to get this low angle shot that make me look imposing because I'm only 5'8", so I have to do that. But it was, but that's how it sort of, began in terms of the Halloween fan stuff. So it was, and now there's and there's some really good Halloween fan films online.
Yeah, they're getting better and better.
Yeah, there's some not so good ones, but there's some good ones. There's some good, but it's saturated now.
Both.
Yeah,
exactly.
The one that Dave and I made, Haddonfield Reaper, that one was shot on our cell phones. I had the iPhone at the time. Dave had Galaxy, Samsung, and we had 2 gimbals, and we shot it with our cell phones and gimbals and just did our best to kind of match it. And that one was actually kind of a fun story. You know, it had been a little bit since we had done something together, I think. And, you know, Dave was like, you know, he called me up that day. I think it was like a Friday, and I was working and I had had like a super long week. And, you know, Dave gave me a call and he's like, dude, like, let's get together. Let's shoot something. Like, let's just do it tonight. Let's link up tonight. Let's do this now. Let's do it now.
I said that. Well, but hang on. Before you continue, because this was 2018, and it was about a week and a half before we were going to the world premiere of Halloween 18.
That's right.
So I was jazzed, you know. So I was like, dude, we got to do something.
Yeah. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, yo, you're like, you know, I'm like, nah, not right now, not today. I'm like really tired and, you know, whatever, working this long week or whatever. And then I think it was around, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 o'clock.
It was late.
And yeah, you know, I was just finishing the workday and I was like, you know what? Fuck it. Like, we only live once. Let's do this. So I called up Dave. I'm like, yeah, man, let's get together. Let's do it. Let's shoot it. And he came over and, you know, I think we probably started maybe around like 8 o'clock or whatever. And from 8 until, I want to say maybe like 6 in the morning, 5 in the morning, something like that. Almost a full like 12 hours. We brainstormed the idea, filmed it, and then that was it. And then Dave went to town on post for like the rest of the weekend, and we had a short film cut by the end. It truly, it felt like we were part of a 48-hour film festival. Like it was, we cranked it out like that. Yeah, it's
on my channel right now, and it's called Haddonfield Reaper. It's a little unorthodox when you watch it. You know, it takes place in an apartment building, and Michael takes the elevator, and it's not supposed to be comedic. It's just he takes the elevator. Yeah. Why wouldn't he? He's fucking sick of the stairs. But it's fun. Like it was fun. Like it was spur of the moment. It was fun to do. Right. So it's a little unorthodox. There's a dream sequence in there, but it works kind of it was fun. It was fun. Right?
Yeah. It was like very much like, you know, when you get together and you're just, you know, you're living by that creative flow, and you've just got that energy and you need to release it. And it's, you know, you just improvise and you put something together, and it just comes together last minute, just like a 48-hour film festival. Like it was very much done in that kind of vein.
Felt like we were teenagers again.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
It was great.
Have you guys ever done any of those 48-hour film festivals? I've been involved in a couple, actually.
No, I haven't.
No.
I'm not a fan of them, but you know, I kind of got suckered in usually to do music for them. But
we certainly support a bunch through my workplace. There's a few across the country that we support, and some in Vancouver. But no, never participated in one. But
I was asked once, and I turned it down because I just was like, maybe, you know what? It was something like a 48-hour film festival, or even those 24-hour ones. There's a couple of those, but the 48-hour ones is like, you really gotta. I think I just didn't want to, because I just didn't know the people well, and I'm like, if I'm gonna spend 48 hours with you, you know, like I gotta, you know, like I would do it in a heartbeat if it was like Bruce and Cecil and Vince, and you know, like you know what I mean, But when it's people like I don't mean any disrespect. I'm just like, you know, no, you know, I'm just it's too painful, I think.
Oh, I hear you. I hear you. I find them stressful. That's for sure. I get stressed out doing them, you know. But I've done them. I think I'm done doing them, though. I don't really want to do them anymore.
That's it. You're done. You're out.
I'm getting a lot of birthday wishes in the chat. I'm surprised all these people know it's my birthday. J-Man's Movie Cave. It's Jason Dyke. Thanks, man, for the happy birthday. And Jason also says, "What's up, Dave and Bruce?" Susie Lopez, happy birthday. Degree Centigrade, happy birthday. Lazy Reviewer, Michelle Blasky, Good Real Hunting, Chris Snyder, Christian Spencer, Did I miss anyone? Mandy,
Happy birthday to
all saying
you.
happy birthday to you. Thank you guys
Happy
so much.
birthday to you.
How did you guys
Happy
all know it was my birthday?
dear Steve.
I'm not really 33.
Happy birthday to you. He's 21 today, folks.
That's right.
He's 21.
That's
Yeah,
right. That's right. Happy birthday,
add,
Steve.
add 20 years on that, you are right. You got the
That's
one
it.
right.
I got the one right. Okay.
The one
At
right.
20 years. Oh
There
my
you go.
God. Aging
Yeah, well, thank you guys all for the birthday wishes. That means a lot. That I don't know what to say. I'm surprised you guys all knew. I knew some of you would have known, but like Jason, I understand why you know. But but most of you, it's like I don't advertise it. I try not to anyway.
I never do. I actually took when I joined Facebook in 2009 or 10, whatever it was, I didn't have the setting ticked off. So, people would know, you would, would say like in 2 days, it's Dave McRae's 31st birthday, whatever. Right. Yeah. And then people would be like, happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday. So after about 2 years of that, I was like, I want to see who really remembers. So I went into my privacy settings and I was like, unclick. Nobody wished me a happy birthday on my birthday. Really? Well, Bruce did, obviously. And like close personal friends, like, Brian and Evan, who Bruce knows from high school. Like, you're like what would be the equivalent of like an immediate family, right? Like your immediate personal friendship group.
Or friend group.
Yeah. Kind of like, they know that. But everybody else, no. Kidding me? They didn't all of it. It's because of Facebook. So now I don't have it on there. I'm like, good. I want that on there. Oh, fucking
there you go.
I'm
gonna have to try that now. I'm so bad with all the privacy settings. I don't even know how to do any of that stuff. I'm not a techie guy, I guess you could say. But anyway.
But you got one hell of a setup right now. That's what I hear. That's what I hear.
We talked about that earlier.
That's right.
Everybody knows. Hey, yes, I record the show on my phone, guys. Yes.
Hey, there's nothing wrong. That's how I said. That's how I started.
Good. Yeah.
It's an iPhone.
And phones today are great.
iPhones are great. Yeah. We shot one of our films on an iPhone. So
there you go.
Gonna say.
You can shoot great stuff on phones.
You can.
You can.
Yep.
You can. I've never done it before, but you can.
Yeah, it's really all about understanding lighting, composition, and telling your story through the lens, and you can shoot it on. I mean, yes, obviously shooting on a phone as compared to like the Alexa or something. I mean, obviously there is going to be a difference, but you can still make it look really good, you can shoot a movie on the area and make it look like shit. So. It's really, you can have the best piano in the world, but like I always say, if you don't know how to play it, it doesn't matter.
I don't know how to play it. Exactly. Well, I'm more of a guitar player, but
I wish I could play the piano.
With my intro music. You probably heard that with my intro music, but
was that you?
That's all. I recorded all that right in this wonderful
Oh, really?
bedroom that I'm in right now.
Some good shit, Steve. I mean that. That sounded. I thought it was like some fucking like Iron Maiden or something.
Yeah, I thought it was total pro recording.
Iron Maiden inspired, I guess you could say.
Okay, all right. I got you. No, that's awesome. I didn't know that.
I'm not just a metal guy, but I do like my share of metal. Yes.
Okay, that sounded great.
So let's talk. It's me, Billy, a bit here, guys.
Okay.
As some of you know who watched my stream when I talked about the movie, there were a couple things I had issues with, and hey, I have issues with my favorite films, so it's not really that big a deal. A lot of them were nitpicks, so I'm definitely not gonna get into a lot of the criticisms I have, but I want to ask certain questions on certain decisions you guys made and what led to certain decisions that you guys made. Does that sound
for sure.
sound okay?
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah.
So, what was behind the decision to keep having lived through the first movie? Was there a certain reason why you thought that was the best way to go? Did you guys even toy with the idea of maybe she was dead?
Do you mean live like at the end of the movie she's alive, or do you mean lived like how at the end of the first movie? Is she not? But we brought her back. So there was 40 something years there where she was alive. Like, is that what you mean? Like how she survived the first movie?
Like how, Was there any, I guess you could say talk of like, maybe she is dead in the, after the original film. And, And was that ever like something brought up in your guys' conversation when you're going to it, or was it right away you thought, what if she lived, and that's the angle you're going to go with?
I think, and Bruce can jump in. My recollection is that when I mean, and I've said this 1,000 times, that the ending of that movie is great. It doesn't need a sequel, right? It's a great, ambiguous ending. If and they do hint. Obviously, there is the idea that Billy makes a phone call after every kill, and then of course we see the camera on a crane, and we're coming back, and then you hear the phone, and it's hinted at that he likely killed Jess. It's a good assumption. It's circumstantial, but it's a good it's an informed assumption for sure. But even Bob Clark, years later, sadly, of course, he passed away in 2007, but he said that he had an idea for a sequel that would involve Olivia Hussey reprising her role. So even Bob Clark was, I don't know then, but certainly toyed around with the idea that he would bring her back. That didn't really bear any weight on us, I don't think. But from my recollection, it was, I said to Bruce, we needed to crack the code. Right? What is this going to be about? Right? We didn't want to just remake Black Christmas again and do our own version of it, because we knew out of the gate that we were going to make a real movie. We were going to go through the process. We were going to hire professionals. We were going to shoot it professionally. We were going to go, through the same processes we would go through if it was an original piece that had nothing to do with the film. And so in that sense, it's like fan film and name only, really, at the end of the day. And so we needed to figure out what was the code. What was the code? What was it going to be about? And I was watching it and I realized, she's pregnant, and we never find out, does the baby survive? I mean, you could say, well, I guess she, the baby does not survive if she dies. True. But there was never a line of, she lost the baby, or, whatever the case is, right? We knew she wanted to have an abortion, but I thought, well, maybe that's the end point. Maybe she does survive and she has the baby. And what sort of residual effects would that night have on this baby? And, and then where does that go? And that sort of, I think, was the catalyst, that was the code that led us to 40 something years later into, kind of like her surviving, and then trying to figure out what kind of a person was she? Was she a recluse? And did she go off and was preparing for this night, like Jamie Lee Curtis's Laurie Strode in Halloween 2018? Or she was like going all Sarah Connor? Or was it a different approach, and that she became an author and wrote a book and became obsessed with it, and it became an area of contention between her and her daughter, and that it just kind of spiraled from there. I think that's kind of how it was, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, right, no, absolutely. Because like when we talked about it, because what Dave is describing is one of the very first things that we talked about before we even put pen to paper. And because we sat there and we talked about it, we went, okay, if we went the pathway where Jess did not live and she was in fact killed, well, then where does that kind of leave the story? Because that means that, pretty much everybody's died from that original story. It leaves us with Billy. So then we could follow the journey of Billy, and then we have totally different characters now involved. And, when you think of cinema and you think of sequels and stories that continue to be told, we just believe that, well, it's got greater impact if we're continuing the lineage. And then it also sparks that immediate intrigue from the audience, because they're like, well, what happened over these 45 years? How did she live? What was going on? And, Dave and I talked a lot about, our theories on what probably actually happened that night, and it, we threw down a few different ideas, enough to give the actresses some context and some motivation, because that came off obviously in the conversations and table reads and when we were on set. And some of the crew were curious too. So, we talked about that, but we just felt as though it just made sense to, like, in order for us to continue the story, we wanted to continue with the lineage. And then we thought, well, to make it also relatable to a lot of today's audiences, and also to capture some of the original audience that would have grown up with the classic. We thought, well, let's make the cast a bit younger, make her the grandchild of Jess. And it also gives us lots of space to tell more story, should that ever come to fruition, and Dave and I even sort of threw around the idea, hey, who knows what happens with this film? Who knows what comes down the line? There's potential for this to be turned into a Netflix miniseries. It has the potential to be a feature film, and or whatever. Like, again, it was all part of sort of that strategy when writing, and thinking through how can we leave doors open but give concrete, progress to the story and the characters and the development, satisfy the fans, and bring our own flavor to it. So
yeah, it's an evolution too, I remember some of our first ideas, we toyed around with it being Jess's daughter. And then that would put Jess's daughter in her 40s, probably maybe a smidgy older than us, right? If she was born in 75, let's say. Yeah. So we toyed around with that idea as well. But as Bruce said, we thought, let's go younger, and let's make it more of an attractive kind of appeal, I think, to that classic, it's me, Billy. We were very nuanced with a lot of the things that are in that film. It's the kind of film that you have to watch a couple of times to pick up on those things. Like, for example, the line where Emma says, "We're basically sisters," right? I mean, that's got so many meanings to it. I mean, that's sorority sisters, right? When you think of that, that's that cinematic language. That's that layer that's there. But they're also talking about how girls and guys as well. I mean, I consider Bruce a brother from another mother, right? I've known him for 30 years. We consider our close friends of years and years and years family, right? So, it has that meaning to it too. So there was a lot of just discussion of wanting to kind of go back to that age, and play in that age bracket rather than the older bracket, which you could have done. It was just a creative choice.
Just wanted to appeal to younger audiences, basically, right?
Yes, and but also to have it feel like Black Christmas, kind of that connection that, no matter what age you are, if you've seen the first, you see this one, it feels it feels like Billy's toying with younger girls again. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Cool. Was there ever a discussion to keep some of that ambiguity of the ending of the original? Like, even like if it was like maybe revealed at the end that, oh, okay, just lived or died, vice versa. Was there ever like, it maybe we thought that was that ever kind of discussed, that maybe you would set it up that she had died, but then it turns out this is her granddaughter, something like that? Was that ever kind of thought of?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Okay.
Possibly, maybe. I can't remember specifically, but I know there was a lot of discussion around the construction of the beginning of all that. So that might have been something that we discussed.
We kind of sort of chose to leave some of that surprise, obviously, for the ending of our film. We kind of chose to give you that sort of surprise, later, to reveal that, oh, hey, no, she's still alive. But I don't know. Yeah, I guess, we really just sort of, once we started thinking about the evolution of the story and had started to make those decisions, it just kind of made sense, like, for us to be able to continue to tell the story. It just made logical sense, I guess, to us to I guess kind of continue down that path.
And it was set up, like, as they can see now, and as I've said many times on my own channel, that it was deliberately set up episodically, because there's, it's if this was studio funded, well, then we could have told the whole thing. We would have written a 90-page script and told the whole thing. But when you are independently financing your films, as Steve, it can be very difficult. And sometimes, and even Vince, that's why he did Never Hike in the Snow and didn't turn Never Hike in the Snow into a 90-minute feature, because he's got to do these things in stages. We can deliver studio quality, eventually, but we have to do it in stages, and because we just don't have all the money we would need up front. And so we knew that going in, this was going to be sort of the first part of this. And I guess we could have told people that it's episodic and to expect something that feels unfinished, but we didn't want to give any inkling whatsoever to this first part, at the very least, ending on not just a cliffhanger, probably 3 of them or 2 in a row, and one that's a bombshell. And we just didn't want to draw any attention to it. But it wasn't arbitrarily done. It wasn't, it's not, we're not Lucasfilm, like I joked. We do have a plan. We do have a direction. We do know where we're going. But we needed to stop there because, it costs a lot of money, and hey, why don't we shoot this? You know what I mean? And then if it does well and there's a need and there's a desire for it, we hopefully will be able to continue the story, which will answer the questions and have it make sense. And some of the things like, I love people that say, but wasn't there a funeral? And no, there had to have been a funeral. And I'm like, really? There had to have been one? I'm like, really, guys? Come on. Think of movies. Think of Hollywood movies. You know what I mean? It's just, it's funny, and there's so many options. And it's fun to play in that space, and it keeps the mystery there. And if we had the money, you would have already been on to the next episode,
Yeah, I definitely hear. I don't think there needed to be a funeral or anything like that. It could have implied that Jess had just died like the day before or something like that. And I could have believed that. But I mean, at the same time, I'm kind of like wondering how she could be alive. Why would her granddaughter think that she's dead?
That's right. Why, Steve?
So why?
Why?
I guess that's.
Yeah, I think you hit the money on the head there, Steve, because that's exactly it. It's that's one of those intentional story choices where, Dave and I had said, because we knew people would have that question, and we even talked about it. We talked about it a lot, and we said, okay, we're going to save that and answer that in the next chapter, because that's what creates the cliffhanger. And it's just like, what do you mean? How? What? Yeah, and then to Dave's point, it's like, I'm going to hit play on the next episode. Like you know what I mean?
Yeah. If this was totally backed, you would have been click, skip intro and go, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you would have been, let's do this, but it's like those, oh no, am I going to have another one of those? I forget what I was going to say. We were just talking about this before we went live. Anyway, yeah.
Make
So
notes.
maybe I'll think about it. Go on. I'll probably think of it.
We'll just touch on that a little bit more as far as the ending goes. I was going to save that for the ending, but since we're kind of on that topic of Jess being alive at the end of that, was that always like the exact plan, or was there any idea of maybe let's keep this ambiguous a little bit too? Like maybe you imply that it's just that she sees, but if she didn't say grandma, or maybe she just had a jaw drop kind of moment, was, I just, for me, you're going to upset a lot of fans if you don't get Olivia Hussey in that sequel. I mean, you won't upset me, right. But was that ever a concern to you? I don't know.
I think there may have been some early drafts where there may have been. I don't know for sure. Bruce can
It's a
correct me
ballsy
if I'm
move.
wrong.
I gotta say, it's a ballsy move to have her say grandma, because that's it's definitely.
Well, we wouldn't have had her say that if we didn't. It's not like grandma, great. So now what? I don't know. We have the. I mean, the script hasn't been written for part 2 yet, but certainly if we were to sit down and write it, we know how to begin. And that's the most important thing. And I think there may have been a moment where maybe you heard the chains and then you see her face, and then it just cuts to black. Maybe there might have been an early draft where she doesn't say it. I'm not sure, but there was always an intention to have her there. I mean, that's who it was going to be. So whether you knew it was her at the end of this one or not, and you discovered it was her at the beginning of the next one, she was always, that was always who it was going to be in the basement, was going to be her. And obviously, as I've said many times, the dream is to get Olivia Hussey. If she does, if we can't, which I mean, let's face it, the odds are against us. If we can't, we will recast. I mean, we'll do that. We'll put just as much diligence into recasting her as we did casting Victoria as her granddaughter. You know, so we will cast somebody that you look at and you think, I believe that's her. You know, I mean, yes, I can tell it's not her, but I believe that's her, you know. And then of course, then we'll pay attention to the performance and all that kind of stuff, and who has the best chops, and you know, hopefully we won't have to do that. But if we do, that might be exciting too. You know, that'll be a challenge, but it'll be a creative challenge that I know Bruce and I will be up for. But yeah, the goal is definitely her. But oh yeah, no,
she's against you though in getting her.
Well, I think it always is by default, right? I mean, it's you know, she's SAG, so that obviously, you know, you have to pay attention to that, right? And then of course, yeah, I would imagine so. And then of course there's the Los Angeles Toronto geography. There's, you know, payment, there's border, there's COVID, there's, you know, there's a lot. I mean, who knows where we'll be with COVID at that time? But certainly those are things you got to think about, and you know, but I mean, who knows? Maybe she'd say yes. I don't know. I mean, we did try to get her in this movie because we wanted to have her there. And when she goes, Grandma, the camera was going to turn and see her.
We wanted to
and
show
then it was
her.
going to cut to black. Yeah, that's what we were going to do. And people would have just lost their shit, you know, but we didn't. I did reach out to her representative, which I believe is her husband, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think she's rep by like William Morris Endeavor or what's the other big one? CAA, the Creative Artists Agency. There's 3 or 4 big agencies in. I mean, there's a lot of agencies, but those are the kind of, you know, the huge ones. I don't think she's represented by any of those. I think she's just her husband. I think she's kind of semi-retired a bit. She's been doing a lot of VO work, which, you know, might be kind of an in. I can relate to that. But when I reached out to her husband, that was just my gum that dropped. When I reached out to her husband, I never heard back. So whether it got to her, I don't know. Maybe her husband saw the email and was like, "Yeah, no, I don't think so. Delete." You know, but who knows?
There was that one tweet. I forget who it was. Had sent a tweet and mentioned her specifically and tweeted it to her. And
that was the Indiegogo teaser. That was Lee McCoy of Drum Dums had added on Twitter Olivia Hussey, and Olivia Hussey had said, "Oh, this is really cool.
Yeah,
they should get my daughter to play my granddaughter," because Olivia Hussey's daughter, she had I think her daughter's name is Indiana or something like that, and she had her daughter in the early 90s. So her daughter's only about 27.
I know she has a young daughter.
So unfortunately, we had already cast Victoria at that time, but she did see the Indiegogo. I think you're right, Bruce. I think that was Indiegogo.
Yeah. So she was definitely aware of the project, or at that point in time, aware of the intention for it to be made. We don't know if she followed the project after that or not, but you know, who knows, right? Who knows what could happen? Yeah. But it would be our first choice to have her, of course.
Yep.
And then, I'd say keep reaching out. Just
no. We would.
That's what I keep doing. I just keep bugging people until I hear something back, and sometimes I get a no, and sometimes they say, "Well, how much can you pay me?" You know.
Yeah.
Right.
And, like there have been a few celebrities I did try to attach to the Sawyer Massacre. In fact, we did get one of the original cast members to do a voiceover cameo in our teaser trailer, which was pretty cool. But we can't get him for the film, unfortunately. But you know, at the same time, there are certain actors I am able to get in the film if I can pay them enough, whether they're SAG or not. I know that there's a certain type of SAG you can do that's sort of half SAG. It's like, I can't remember the name of it.
Financial Core.
I think that's the one. Now that you mention it.
FICOR. It allows you to do union and non-union. It's not I mean, SAG-AFTRA doesn't, you know, they don't like it. There are loopholes. I deal with this in voiceover all the time. I've done union and non both. So it's there are things that can be done, but If they get wind of it, I mean, they would prefer obviously that it's because you get paid. Well, it's just you get paid scale. They would require that, and there's certain rules and regulations and all that kind of stuff, and it's understandable. And it's nothing that we wouldn't be prepared to do. That's fine. It's just a matter of making sure that we're able to do it.
Because I'm even looking at the possibility of making mine SAG, but paperwork is just massive.
Well, that's why. In voiceover, especially, a lot of studios and production companies are going non-union because you can get the same. I mean, there's if you know where to look, you can get the same top-notch talent, but without all the paperwork. So, but that's VO. That's a whole other video. But yeah, no, I mean that's our goal. That's our goal. Let's have our fingers crossed. But we always wanted her there because we knew. We didn't just go, oh, wouldn't it be cool? Hey, dude, I got an idea. She survives. How? I don't fucking know. She's just there. Why not? Yeah. People are going to fucking lose their shit. Yeah, but didn't they have a funeral? No. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. She's just there. Isn't that cool? No, it definitely wasn't that. It definitely wasn't that. There's a reason why she's there.
By the way, who did her grunt at the end there before? Because you hear a voice kind of
that kind of thing.
Was that you?
No, it was some Foley that I had of effects.
Random, random voice.
Yeah, but I pitched it lower because it was actually a younger moan, so I pitched it a bit lower to sound older.
Oh, well, there you go.
Movie magic.
Anyways, just to make sure I'm not neglecting anybody in the chat. See if anybody new joined. Jake Arts Live joined as well. Happy birthday as well. Filthy Dan.
Happy birthday to you.
Wow. Tiffany Moses. I'm not sure.
Shantae.
If you've been Shantae. Well,
Tiffany Moses Shantae. She's a regular on my channel too.
Oh, okay.
She's great.
I don't know if she's ever been on my channel before. Okay, I think that's all the. And again, we'll get to you guys' questions in a little bit. So with the idea of it being modern day, was there ever different time periods you guys discussed as well, other than modern day? Like, did you ever think of maybe continuing it like a couple nights after, still that same Christmas? Because it's never actually fully said that, like, it's not actually takes place right on Christmas Day or anything, or a year later or something like that. Was that ever kind of toyed around?
I would say not really, and that really would have come down to a budgetary decision, because if we were to do that, it now suddenly becomes a period piece, and that would increase the budget significantly. So present day is definitely the most affordable choice. So there are some decisions I think any filmmaker watching would also relate to and go, sometimes there are decisions that are made like that for budgetary reasons, but it's very practical. But then it's about making sure that everything is still purposeful, and everything is intentional. And so, yeah.
It makes sense. No. You do want to be authentic to the time period if you are going to
choose a
period piece. And
that's it.
It's one of the things that kind of bugs me about a lot of modern films that do supposedly take place in say the 70s or the 60s or something, and you hear the dialogue coming out of some of the actors' mouths. It sounds like it was from the 2000s or something, right?
Well, that's it. Yeah. And even some of the smaller details. Yeah.
It would have presented another challenge that just was, I mean,
it would have been more expensive.
It would have been more expensive, sure. and
the house looks great. The house would have worked. The house you guys got would have worked.
The house definitely would have worked. It was built in the 1870s, I believe. So well, that's just it too. Costume design and hair and all the furniture and all that kind of stuff. Although the furniture was pretty old, but still, I mean, we would have had to have.
I would have bought
it. We would have had to have. It just would have presented an extra challenge and cost.
Makes sense. That makes sense. The decision to have Agnes be alive and be a big part of this movie, again, wasn't one of my favorite things about it. But what kind of made you guys think, hey, let's have Agnes be a part of this film in that capacity?
Well, contrary to what some people think, this was,
saying.
you know what I'm going to say.
Not a nod to the 2006 film.
No, this is not a nod to the 2006 film.
No, not at all.
If you are familiar with the original, the phone calls appear to be nonsensical and long diatribes of nonsense, but Bob Clark was specific to have little clues and things within the nonsense that points to a larger, bigger picture to who Billy is. Not so on the nose, but kind of just bits and pieces like a jigsaw puzzle. And one of the things we hear, and I'm going to paraphrase, but of course, is the name Agnes. We hear that name, and it's referenced. I think he says something like, Billy's on the phone, and of course he's playing like 3 different people on the phone, and you hear him say something like, "Billy, what have you done with Agnes? Don't touch the baby. Where's Agnes?" Like, you hear that kind of stuff, right?
Oh yeah.
And Bob Clark said years later that in his mind, even though it wasn't specifically said in the original film, in his mind, Agnes was Billy's younger sister who Billy abused, likely abused, and probably murdered along with his family, with his mom and his dad, or
I think
who
I
knows,
saw that
right?
same interview.
Yeah. He's and that's been out there for years, and that's cool too, because as you know, as a writer, and even if you're not going to let on in your script to certain things that you want to remain ambiguous, or certain things, you as the writer have to know what it is. You have to have answers, because you have to answer to those questions. And it also helps you as a writer, because then you know how to be ambiguous. If you don't know what the answer is, how do you be ambiguous to something you know nothing about?
It becomes selective. You're making choices then, deliberate choices. Yeah.
Great. Exactly. You are making deliberate, I couldn't have said it any better. You're making deliberate choices then. You're not just randomly putting things in that seem mysterious. And so,
just because they sound cool or something,
right? Exactly.
And that's where it's interesting how like the 2 different pathways can result in what's perceived to be the same outcome, but one is more effective, and people can know that, they can sense that. And the reason it can be more effective is because it's deliberate choices that are behind it. It's and it's also important from a directorial point of view that you've got those answers, so that when you're working with your actors, you can give them that backstory, because they're going to want to know that. They're going to ask that. And we certainly had those conversations with our cast, and it helped them a lot. And there was a lot of questions around that, especially from Caro when we were working with her and her character. And in a previous interview, she had talked a lot about, her character doesn't have a lot of screen time, and there isn't a lot of opportunity for her to show what her character is. And so she had described her process as a performer. There was a lot of, I guess, like needing to control and keep things sort of bottled up. But, there's a lot of thinking that's going on behind every statement and every moment that she's expressing. So, when it finally got to the end where she's like, "Billy, get your fucking ass out here," and she's dragging Sam's body out of the car, that was a real moment of release where, again, some of our direction to her was, your mask has dropped. The mask is off now at this point. We want to see some of the real Agnes coming out. You're no longer Mrs. Crane, you're Agnes. And I think, to add a little bit more to what Dave was saying, and like to your question, Steve, is that in some ways, I think there's some stuff of the original 1974 film, we kind of treated them, I'm going to say, kind of like Easter eggs in a way. So if you think back to the phone calls and you hear Agnes being mentioned, she's never like a full character that we see anywhere, and we ignored the 2006 and the 2019 films. Like there was no intention of any influence of those on our film. And so it's kind of like taking that Easter egg and now giving you more. And when we wrote this, we thought of it as the 1974 film is the beginning of the story. This is the middle. And then we would want to bookend it with the end. And so it becomes a 3-act piece. So it's like a trilogy, in the end, or, has the potential to be. And so when you think of it with that kind of thinking, then Agnes, it almost becomes a setup of the character. And then in the sequel, now you get to see her. And then in the third part, it's like, well, where do we take this character now, and what kind of evolution do we see, and how much deeper do we go, and scarier do we get, and you know what I mean? And so that was part of the thinking process with our writing as well, and sort of how we framed it in our minds as creatives.
Yeah, and just to add to, he's bang on, and just to add to that too, I think it is understandable why some people would see Agnes in our film and automatically think of the 2006 movie, and I think it's because, and although I don't have concrete evidence of this, just knowing that Black Christmas, the original, is a Canadian movie. It was known as Silent Night, Evil Night, or Silent Night, Evil Night. Yeah, I think it is. No, Silent Night, Deadly Night is the actual other thing. Silent Night, Evil Night, for the first little bit, because Warner Brothers was afraid that people were going to think it was a blaxploitation film. And then, of course, when it came to NBC TV, I think it was NBC in the late 70s, they changed the title to Stranger in the House. And if you go to Black Christmas right now on Rotten Tomatoes, the title is Stranger in the House, which is ridiculous. I don't know why it is that title on Rotten Tomatoes, because you can buy the film.
Tomatoes, so.
Yeah, you can buy the film in the States under the title Black Christmas. So I don't understand why it's even like. I think they should just change it to Black Christmas. But I think it's a niche film. It's a cult film. Not a lot of people have seen it. Certainly not. It's an acquired taste. It's a slow burn, arguably much slower even than Halloween. It's not nearly as popular as Halloween, even though it influenced Halloween. It's one of those movies that a lot of people just haven't seen and maybe haven't heard of. And but the 2006 movie, I think more people have seen that. And I don't necessarily think the 06 movie caused maybe a lot of people to go back and watch the original. Maybe not. But in that movie, Agnes is I mean, listen, I know it has its fans. You can watch it and enjoy it for what it is and in a certain way, but it is gory, and it's got incest, and Billy's mother is fucking him as a man, whatever. And you got Agnes is played by a man in the movie. And they team up in the movie, and they're like, but it's like I'm watching some weird Rob Zombie version of Black Christmas. It doesn't feel
no subtlety at all.
No, it's not a mature, psychological horror film. You know what I mean? Like the original kind of was. Like there's no nuance. It's just, and you know what? But I will give credit where credit is due. They didn't just do the same thing over again. That's for sure. They made it their own fucking thing. They certainly did that. So I tip my hat to that. So I think when people see Agnes in our film and we reveal Agnes to be working with, whatever it is, right? They kind of go, oh, like you're gonna, so that's a nod to the 06 film. And like I always say, in order to be nodding to something, you have to like what you're nodding to. And so it's not a nod. We went back to the original and said, well, Agnes is Billy's sister. That's not, we didn't create that. The 06 film didn't create that. The 06 film took what Bob Clark said about their relationship and then brought Agnes in. And we did the same thing. They went left, we went right. And not politically, I just mean in direction. And we wanted to approach it less from a hokey carnival kind of way and reintroduce that idea, but in more of a mature, psychological, serious way. You know what I mean? And that's what we decided to do. But we understand why there's some people that are like, oh, but the 06 movie has nothing to, Black Christmas 06 had absolutely unequivocally no influence on this movie. We didn't even pay any attention to it.
And I think when you look at the character of Agnes and how we treated the character, like how we wrote the character, it's very different than that other version. So it's important to disassociate, I guess, and I know it's hard not to, right? Like, it's almost like you're seeing the same character recast and now they're playing their version of it. It's kind of like, I get that.
For many years, I mean, when you say the name Agnes, people would think of the 06 Agnes, right? So, I mean, it's understandable, but we just went back to go forward again.
Yeah, totally. It makes sense for me. It's just, I guess for me, it just wasn't, it's more of a personal choice. I wouldn't have had, whether she's alive or dead, I guess I probably wouldn't have, if I was to do it. I wouldn't do one, mind you, but I kind of like the ambiguity of Agnes, whether she is alive or dead. I always kind of felt she was probably dead, and he's like kind of reliving his murder of her every time he kills I always kind of got that kind of feel from it. But
Cool.
I totally understand your guys, why you guys went that way, and it's an interesting twist. It's just not where I would have gone, I guess you could say.
Gotcha.
Fair.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, that's fair.
And
That's fair. That's fair. And there's still a whole other part to go, so buckle up.
Maybe we'll learn more.
Buckle up. You may learn more. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I always just felt she was probably dead, but maybe she got away. Maybe I always kind of felt like maybe if she did get away, every time Billy's trying to kill somebody, it's like he's trying to make sure she doesn't get away. So there could be that kind of two sides to him, right? So, but I definitely feel like she was living inside his head. Too, because it's like you're hearing her talk. I feel like his whole family is living inside his head. He's killed his whole family, and they're all parts of his personality. That's just how I feel, though, mind you. But there's
a whole other part to go, Steve. You gotta
maybe
buckle up and sit back.
Maybe I'm not off. I definitely hear his dad yelling at him in the original first, and even in yours, I feel like I'm hearing.
Oh, dude, look, this is not a spoiler in terms of whatever the directions and the ideas that we're going to take into the next chapter. Absolutely. I mean, of course, I mean, all the things he's saying and like, you killed him, Billy. Why did you let him go, Billy? All this stuff, whatever it is, like oh my God. Yeah. Like, that's why we have that in there. Right. And things like, I should have killed the baby. What baby is he talking about? Well, I mean,
I have a theory. I'm not gonna. I have a theory. I'm not gonna say anything, but I do have a theory.
But so there's all, like, we played into that for sure. Like, we had talks about his family and what that means to him, and we can't say too much more than that because we need to finish our story. But yeah, no, we totally get it. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, I wanted to talk about Billy himself. I actually kind of like the actor that played Billy, but for the longest time, I was suspecting that you guys actually were able to find the original guy who had the eye in the original and everything like that. I had a suspicion, and there was talk that it was the camera guy, Albert Dunk, that did it. I heard that one of you guys knew Albert Dunk from somewhere. So I bet they got Albert Dunk to do it, and there's no 100% confirmation whether it was him. I've heard Burt Dunk in an interview say that it was actually Keir Dullea that did the eye. Bob Clark said, I don't know who got to do the eye, but it's kind of a mystery. I sometimes thought you guys did that.
I sometimes think that a lot of misinformation is put at, like, Billy's not even credited in the credits of Black Christmas. Yeah. He's not even in the credits. I don't even think, like, I think on IMDb he's credited as the Prowler, if I'm not mistaken, or something like that. But he's not. And then of course it's what's his face, the Italian actor there. He's in Toronto. The guy that was doing most of the
the
voices. Yeah. I think he's credited on IMDb, but and his name escapes me. My apologies to the actor. But
there's three people that really played him.
There's a few people.
There's a lady and Bob Clark as well. I can't remember the lady's name.
Yeah, there's to give that incoherency.
And that was very much for the voices and stuff too, because Burt Dunk was the camera operator, and
I know he was all the POV versions of his hands and everything.
That's right. Yeah, he was at one point he was the executive director at CERT, which it's a satellite branch, I guess I'll call it, of Sheridan College, based here in Ontario, and it's a Screen Industries Research and Training Center, and it's they do a lot of technology development and research for the film industry. There was originally a lot of focus on camera technology, and there's some work that now they're getting into with virtual production technology. And, they've very much been at the forefront and working and integrating with, colleges and universities, and of course the professional film industry. And so Burt, was in charge of that space for some time. And so I met him through that. Through that facility, right? And our business has worked with CERT on a few different initiatives, and so that's where we ended up meeting. But Yeah, I'm kind of forgetting the original question, but yeah, from what Dave and I talked about,
do you know whether he was the eye or not?
Yeah, well, this I was just going to say. I think people.
Yeah.
I think even Bob Clark and people attached to that film, I think have. I have no evidence of this, but I suspect they have put misinformation out there on purpose to keep people going. I don't know. Was you the Bill? I think I was the. So nobody ever knows, and it keeps the mystery of him there. I mean, who was the one on top of Margot Kidder, with the the unicorn, like this, going. Who was that? Was that a different person than the eye behind the door? The big close up of the eye. Was that different from Billy's shadow? From the I mean, I don't know, right? I don't know, and
I would think it was. I would think that the Margot Kidder was the same as the door.
I would think so.
I would think
so.
They look so close.
They do,
and
it doesn't.
The way the intensity in the eye just kind of looks the same. There's a certain intensity to it.
Yeah, it does. It does. But we cast Brian Charles Peter, who was just getting back into acting. He had taken a long leave of absence, so to speak. He just was not in the game for many years, but he does have a lot of stage experience in acting earlier in his life and all that. So he was just getting back into it, and he delivered a stellar audition. And we kind of had ideas in mind of what we wanted Billy to look like, but we were open to different interpretations. We had a lot of different actors send in stuff, some bald, some buzz cuts, some, dark hair, blonde hair, whatever. But when Brian sent his audition in, I knew it was just a feeling. I was here alone. I watched it and I was like, I gotta get Bruce over here. Bruce came over. I showed him. I loved the long hair.
Yeah.
Because it immediately spoke to me that, this is Billy. It's 45, 50 years later. This is not somebody that's going, and we knew this. This is not somebody that's going to be going to first choice haircutters and getting a haircut and buying a new pair of shoes. I mean, he's unkept.
He's not that kind of person. Yeah.
He's not that kind of person. The look of him, the unkept nature of him, how we're evolving that character into the next chapter is you are seeing a side of Billy you've never seen. You're not really seeing much, but you're seeing a little bit more, and you're seeing the representation of how he looks and the limp he's got and the hair is the representation also of his mental state. I mean, this is his body language, how he presents himself is a representation of the scrambled nature, the cognitive decay of his mind. And if he was like that if he was the way he was in 1974, what would he be in 2021? Because back then, and even today, there's a lot of issues with it. We know that mental health is a big problem today, even today. I mean, there's certainly a lot more avenues and help today than there's ever been. But you can imagine, I mean, in the 70s and the 80s, this guy's not getting help. This guy's not getting help. And so where would he be today? Where would he be? What would his cognitive mindset be like? And so when we saw Brian, that was his real hair. Yeah. We instantly knew. We thought, yes, this is we knew it was going to be a surprise for some, but you have to remember, this is 50 years later.
Yeah.
This is 50 years later. And we wanted who is this hunched over cat? Holy shit.
When we saw the audition tape, he had his son help him light it. His son's a photographer. And, he had some really nice, like blue moonlight coming in through the window as he's sitting, and he was sitting in a rocking chair, rocking back and forth. He had concealed his face with his hair. So we just saw like this silvery blue lit hair, and as soon as I saw it, I was like, Dave, this looks great. Like it, we both felt as though it was a fresh take on the appearance of what this character might be, and it's tough, right? It's like any kind of major IP. Like I can definitely empathize with filmmakers of major productions that are like, I want to satisfy the fans, but at the same time, like I don't want it to be stagnant. I want to evolve things a bit and give it some freshness, but how do you do that without compromising expectations? It's always that dance, right? And it's tough as a filmmaker sometimes. So we really like that direction. Yeah.
Yeah, it's about balance. I mean, fans, especially real hard, there's a spectrum of fans, right? There's the hardcore diehard fans that are going to analyze everything right down to the toenails. And then, and then you have the general movie going audience that is just watching it as is. And then you get everybody else in between. And, we didn't want to do the same thing over again because this is the progression of the character, but we knew that we didn't want to, we didn't want to show Billy show him, but we wanted to, we needed to progress him. And how do you do that? Well, you do it through the lens and you show a little bit more without, we believe, showing everything and still keeping him kind of, what, Jesus, and, we're seeing him and we understand, it's like Michael Myers, right? The natural process of when you make a sequel, you are going to, you do have to see more, like, you have to progress things forward. If you want to live in a world of ambiguity, that has a shelf life, and you can live you can only go so far with it until you have to know more. It's not that more. It's not that the wind is blowing. It's what is the wind blowing, and so what's the dance? What's the balance? What's the presentation like? What are we showing? What are we choosing not to show? It's a fine line. And Bruce is right. I can empathize. I'm sure. But at the same time, you have to be decisive as well, right? You have to be confident in your decisions and say, this is what we're going to present. We feel good about this, and we're going to let the chips fall.
Well justified.
Right. As long as it's well justified. And Bruce and I walked away saying, yes, we show, and I put show in quotes because it's not like we have him in broad daylight at a McDonald's. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We show him more.
You see the physical. You see the physical.
Yeah, the physicality of him. But that feels like, well, if we're doing chapter 2, the middle part of a book or a story, we're going to want to see this. But we kept him in dimly lit shadow and in darkness and light. And so that people could hopefully watch that and go, well, even if you're somebody that says, I don't know if I like seeing that so much, but hopefully people say, but I don't necessarily, but I have no issues believing that's Billy. You know what I mean?
Right.
And if you can watch him and say, I believe that's him 50 years later, I believe this is likely maybe what he would be like 50 years later, then we've done our job, but anyway, so that's a long-winded fucking thing there, but sorry, Steve, go ahead.
No, but
it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah. And I think the other thing too was, like there's moments when Billy in the original, he's climbing up the side of the house. There's a lot of physical components to it. And one of the questions that we asked ourselves and talked about was, well, if Billy is so much older, we also have to show and make the audience believe that, yes, he is still capable of doing these things. Right. And so that was also a big motivator in showing more of his physical body, because that was the only way we could really think of that would be the best way to show
that's true,
that he's physically capable and able of doing these things, which also then tells you that this character is still very dangerous. This man is very dangerous, and if not even more dangerous than he's ever been. And we were aiming to convey that, and then that coupled with that dark psychological side of his character and just how deeply gone he is, you put that together and it's like, who are we dealing with? Like, this is a whole other, it's trying to build an extension of that dimension of who this character is,
You're bang on with that. It's one of the reasons why, too, again, when you notice the death scene of Justine, and we actually see, we could have done it all through POV. We could have done that, but we decided to have one shot like that, have a POV from Justine's perspective, and then immediately jump to a perspective you haven't seen before in this way, which is seeing a 70-year-old man leap from the floor up onto the bed. And that was in a very important thing we needed to show Billy doing, because as Bruce said, we need to show that he's capable of this. I mean, we got the same, it's all in, jest, of course, but we got the same before we shot the film. We got the same. I mean, I remember when, Bloody Disgusting would cover our trailers, you would, look at the comments and, as we all do. And, I saw, I mean, it's all in good fun, but I saw a ton of, isn't he like 80? Oh, what's he going to be doing? What's it? Is he calling Viagra? Like, you see all that shit. Right. And it's like, so we have to convince that, he's capable of doing this. Why didn't Justine, a young, strong, healthy woman, take him out? Yeah, well, this is why. And then if you notice his release that he has when he's murdering her, the release that he has, he laughs at one point, like he's really enjoying this. What's going on in there? Who's he seeing? Is he seeing Justine? Is he seeing somebody else? Is he, what's going on? He's just loving it. It's just crazy. And that was all Brian. That wasn't me. That was all Brian. Right. And so anyway, I just wanted to piggyback on what Bruce said there, because it's true. It was important that the audience not only believe it's Billy, but believe that he's still capable of doing this.
Very, very cool. Very cool. Who did the music for the film?
The film was all from my library of stuff that I've accumulated over the years. Some of it was from is mixed in. I did all of it, so it was mixed. Some of it was layered, like it's soundscape, right? And then I would layer the soundscape with other soundscape to create all the different layers of the sounds. Like it almost sounds like it's not a score, but it sounds thicker and more full than maybe it was. And then the piano and the vroom, vroom, all that kind of stuff. I have a library on my computer of over 5,000 sound effects and tones and sounds and all that I've purchased over 20 years. I mean, I've been doing this since, Audition was Cool at It Pro. So, and then if there's something I don't have, like if there's an effect or a piece of Foley that I have, but it's not the right sound, or it's not the right tone, I will try to mix it properly first, EQ it. And if I can't do that, then I'll go off to, Pond 5 or Audio Jungle or somewhere to find the right door knock, or the right this or the right that. Luckily, I didn't have to do that too many times because of the accumulation of all the sounds and soundscapes that I've accumulated over the years, and just shit that I like. Sometimes I will have shit that I've never used, and I'm like, fuck, I got to use that. Like I got to use that mixed with this, layer that, add that across. I got to do that, and sometimes like I mixed it years ago, but I've never used it. And I'm like, I'm going to use that here. So it's just, it's that kind of thing. We didn't have a composer. It was deliberate. We didn't want one because we knew that this was a movie that, even the original doesn't really have a score. It's more just
to make it in that vein, like the original. Yeah,
exactly. Just sounds and tones and
it's about creating like emotional moments and just kind of feeling
atmosphere,
and making you scared with some of the mood, the atmosphere.
Yeah, things like that. So we chose to, it took a long time to mix all that together and find what works and what doesn't, but we achieved it. But somebody was like, can you put it on a soundtrack? And I'm like, well, I guess I could, I'd have to mix it. It's not, cause people loved it. And that was a great compliment. One of the compliments we got was the sound, which was really nice to hear. But it was all done from scratch, but all mixed, it was like what do they call it? A hodgepodge or whatever it is of things.
Yeah, it's like a real assembly of all this
real assembly of tones and sounds to make a score, so to speak.
Right. Yeah. And that's just kudos to Dave, man. Like, cause we had a process where, he'd cut a bunch of stuff together, and then, I'd come over and I'd listen to what, he had added to the picture. And then I'd give some feedback and some comments, and then talk through some ideas, and we'd explore ideas verbally. And then he'd go away and, think of some stuff, and then, assemble stuff. And then, we just kind of repeated that process until we hit the end. And now, you did a fantastic job, Dave, because it's just,
I appreciate that.
Any filmmaker that makes a movie, it's of my opinion, and I know Dave shares this too, that sound is at minimum 60% of a film, and some filmmakers even argue it's up to like 90%.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if I agree with it quite that much, but definitely
I would say
it's
70%.
it's above half. And something that I wanted to mention too that's so important is that again, when you are when you take on the responsibility, when you're not a composer, which I'm not, and but I know how to mix and master sound, and I know what works and all that. When you take on the responsibility to do that, if you are going to take on the responsibility to do that, excuse me. And not everybody has a library of 5,000 tons of shit, right? But it's important that, you can't just arbitrarily take a sound that sounds cool and mix a couple of sounds together, plop it in, and it works. I mean, you should have seen the amount of types of sounds and tones and I went through, and that I thought worked but didn't work, or that that doesn't work with her look, that doesn't work with the tone, I don't know, that doesn't work with her stance, that doesn't work with the pace of her movement, that it's the same process that you would go to when you are scoring a film, because you're scoring to picture at that point. But I was designing it from scratch. So again, I wasn't on a keyboard designing a score, but it wasn't arbitrarily done. It sounds, I think it sounds as good as it does because I paid very special attention to making sure that the sounds and tones work with what we are seeing. And if you don't think about it and you're just like, oh, this is great, then we've done our job. So
yeah.
Cool. Okay, well let's see if what people are saying in the chat. Let me scroll. I don't have mods, so I have to go through all these myself and see who's got questions.
All good.
Hopefully
all good.
There's not a lot to scroll through. Who's got a question? Christian Spencer, Dave and Bruce. Who inspired you to make horror films?
Oh, I would say, well, I don't know. I was definitely inspired to get involved with making movies because of Dave. My original aspiration was actually to become an animator and pursue that. And then caught the film bug from making projects as a kid with Dave. And then I don't know, I've just had a taste for all genres. So for me, it's not so much the inspiration specifically for horror movies. It's just, I see it more as the inspiration just to make movies, period. And I just have a broad taste. And it's as every filmmaker says, it can be an easy one to step into, in terms of genre. Yeah. And you can have a lot of fun with it, and there's a lot you can do, and not have to worry about such a high budget. Like science fiction, it's not going to fly unless the effects are pulled off and it's top notch.
That's true.
So, I think for me, to summarize, that's kind of what it is for me. Yeah.
I can't remember the moment, ground zero. But it would have been when I was a kid in the 80s. I mean, I got into, as a lot of us did, Freddy Krueger and Jason and Halloween. And then I was the kind of kid that you could, and there's a lot of people that are like this, that you could have rented a movie and I would watch it on repeat all the time. And I was just as fascinated with the movie, with how something was done or how they did something, as I was just by watching the film. So I think I always, and then by the time I, 10, 11 and 12, and I met, Bruce, I wanted to make my own movies and I wanted to shoot films. And I've just always been a movie person, and I've always liked Freddy and Jason, and I've just been into horror. But I like other things too. I mean, I'd love to shoot I have a couple of science fiction ideas that I think are cool, and I like, although sci-fi and horror are cousins of each other, so maybe that's why, because there's a lot of horror in sci-fi too, even if it's thematically and theme and all that kind of stuff, and the message or whatever, right? And sometimes there's sci-fi and horror, but that's really it too. I mean, just I've always had a knack for it, always enjoy it. It's my favorite genre for sure, not just slasher, but like horror, and that encapsulates slasher, psychological thriller, a ton of subgenres. So
that's awesome. lot of happy birthdays to me, guys. I'm sorry.
No, it's great. It's a
Happy
birthday.
birthday, man.
Here's your birthday song. It isn't very long. Hey.
J-Man says, I'm part of the 79 club. Where did the time go? I'm part of the 80 club, so close enough.
Cool,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
A lot
Same.
of that.
Gone.
Happy birthday to you, Steve. It's all happy birthday. Where's all the questions, guys? Dan, that's a long happy birthday. Just saying.
I love it. I love it.
It's good. It's good.
Nice Ron White reference, Dave, says Wayne Downey. I'm not sure what the Ron White reference was now. That was probably a
Ron
little while
White
back
reference?
and I missed it. Was there a Ron White reference?
Ron White
maybe?
reference? Really?
Wayne, let us know what that Ron
I don't know what
White
he's talking about.
reference was.
Not sure what he's talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing I can say, certainly growing up, Nightmare on Elm Street was probably my favorite horror movie, like that series, that one. And then was it Dream Warriors? Was that the name of the third one?
Third one, yeah.
The third
Yeah. Yeah. Those two in particular. I just found Freddy super frightening.
Yeah.
And, that would be one that if I had the budget and the opportunity, like I was disappointed with the remake that was done.
Mm-hmm.
Is it
A lot of
like
people
10
were.
years ago now? Or,
Yeah, 2010.
yeah.
More than 10 years ago.
I love that actor, but I don't know, man. I just didn't buy it. Like
That was dog shit. It was crap.
it just didn't quite flow for me, you know?
There's worse though. There is worse, but yeah,
There
was,
is.
It was
Yeah. But it's but yeah, I love that one. And that one definitely just sort of the creepiness of it and the idea of stepping between dream world and reality. Like I love that kind of heady stuff too. So it helped spark things too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I personally like the first two Nightmare on Elm Street, and then the third one is where I get lost. I kind of get
Right.
I don't know. I felt like Freddy just got a little bit too comedic by that point.
Yeah, he does start to get a little silly as it goes on.
Well, I mean,
Freddy's dead. That was straight up.
Oh,
comedy,
that's terrible.
Yeah,
That's terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's all.
No,
I
it's
do remember playing the video game. I think it was on Super Nintendo.
no, it was the original Nintendo because
was
I
it
remember playing it
Yeah.
with you
Yes. Yeah, I don't know if you ever
in your
played that,
mom's
Steve.
room.
That's it. It was it was the classic 2D graphic like Super Mario, and you're like running along these different streets and you had to jump over things, and Freddy was going to come get you at certain points, and you had to fight these other demons, and it was
Oh yeah.
wow, that's taking it back. I forgot all about that. That's cool.
Yeah, that's I should see if there's a store close to where we are, Bruce, that sells old Nintendo games. I should go over there now that the stores are going to be opening soon and see if I can get it, because I got whatever that thing is that allows you to play old NES games. So I should go and see if I can get it, because that'd be fun to play. They must. I bet you they have it. I bet they got a ton of shit. I bet you they have it.
Yeah.
I'm more of a Sega Master System guy myself. I don't know.
Yeah, I played Sega.
Yeah.
I kind of played a little bit of everything. Yeah, Sega to Nintendo, Super Nintendo. Yeah, all of that. A little bit of Nintendo Cube. Yeah.
No, for sure. But yeah, no, it's been a heck of a journey, with this film. We hope we get the opportunity to complete it, obviously, and complete the story, and then but with anything, there will be if we do get to complete it, there will be people that will go, oh, okay, cool, and then there'll be people that'll go, oh.
Yeah,
that's just
everybody.
You're never going to please everybody, right? That's just the nature of making a film. But we took it very seriously, and I've even pointed out some things to some people, like, oh, I didn't even notice that, or I didn't even realize that, or I didn't even notice you did that. We were very nuanced with some of the things that we did, but we wanted to treat our audience like, one of the things I love about the first film is that it's not a hokey, kind of, I mean, it's still dated, but it feels mature, and yeah, there's some comedy in it, of course, but we wanted to treat it the same way, kind of play it straight, so you don't have those archetypal sort of characters, like one's the slut, one's the this, one's the that, and it's just, they're just friends hanging out, having a good time, and then shit hits the fan, and it just we wanted it. It's like the first half of the movie is like this psychological drama almost, you know what I mean? And we had a lot to, there's a lot that you need to bring people up to speed, and you need to do that in 42 minutes. So Bruce and I knew that we were going to sort of compartmentalize it in the ways of, okay, so the first half is going to be kind of like getting introduced into these characters so you can care about them, because it's one thing that you hardly ever feel yourself feeling is caring for the characters in a horror film. So we wanted people to care for these girls, and you make them, and you do that by making them relatable and understanding, add dimension to them, and sort of be a little fly on the wall and listening to some of the conversations that they're having. And then we knew that the dining room scene was that transitional moment. That was that transition from, if the film has 3 acts, the dining room scene would be kind of like that transition into the second act, and as we go into the night, and then they're kind of fun and things are fun. And then Sam gets serious, and then that's where that tone kind of takes over there at that moment. And then it's pretty serious from there on out. And it becomes very dark at that point, but that was deliberate. Like we paced it that way on purpose. Because there's, we wanted an opportunity for people to care about it, and I said that too. I don't know if you remember this, Steve, but leading up to the release of the movie, I said, because I would get some messages from people saying, I can't wait to see the blood and the gore. And I'm like, whoa. Calm down. Kind of movie, I said, this isn't Friday the 13th. I said, you may want to go over to Steve, and to the Sawyer Massacre. And I don't know if you're going to have that.
You're wrong about that, though.
I know. The original text. No, the original Texas Chainsaw doesn't have any blood in it. I know.
And even, but people see my teaser and they think, boy, this looks like it's going to be super gory. We had like a cup full of fake blood. That to use in that teaser. A cup. We poured it on the one actress that's all covered in that's it, and we splattered some. It was really not as much as people. People have that. Yeah, people have that. And I've gotten some, some people saying, "Oh, I didn't really like it." I'm like, "Oh, that's okay. You didn't like so, what didn't you like about the movie?" And they're like, "Oh, I just I didn't like that there wasn't a high kill count, or I didn't like that it was sort of this boring movie at first." I'm like, well, it's designed that like you have to go back, watch the original. And that's what I think. I think some people, not everybody, you can watch it and totally get it and not like it. That's fair. But I get the suspicion that there's some people out there that were expecting it to be Friday the 13th or something like that. And it's a much more
kind of story. It's not.
No, really, It's Me, Billy is a psychological thriller. You know what I mean? Or a psychological horror. Like that's what it is. And we
were very open about describing leading up to the film too. Because I think that was another part of how we wanted to make it our own as well, and add and kind of contribute and evolve, make it more, because there is that psychological piece even in the original where it's like, well, how creepy is it that your friends are going missing, you don't know where they are, you suddenly discover a friend or two that are dead, and well, who's doing this, what's going on, is it my boyfriend that's doing this, like what's and you're freaking out by the end of the whole thing, like that's just terrifying. And then to bring that so we wanted to evolve that, and maintain that. And again, here's this stranger in the house. What's going on? Sam discovering the blood in the sheets. And it's like, that's about as gory as we got with it. It was.
And to your point too, that's all you needed. And if we can complete this, and we totally understand that It's Me, Billy has to be judged on its own as a complete thing. We understand that. But that's why, I let people know that it's, it's episodic, and that if we get a chance to do the next part, if you were to watch it together, then you would realize that, oh, so there's this setup of like, 10 minutes of reintroducing, and then the rest of the movie is this, high octane kind of thing, not high octane, but you know what I mean? Dark. Right. But that's just the restrictions of being independent and not being able to, if we wanted to shoot the whole story, we would have had to have raised $150,000. And then we would have been making a feature. Right. And, but we have to do it in stages. It's just more manageable that way. You have a higher probability of success if you go for 50 or 60,000 than if you go for 150,000, you know, and because that's a lot like that's a lot to get people to continue, you know, you only got 2 months, you know, on the site, right? I mean, you can launch multiple campaigns like you've done, but we had a shooting date that we wanted to start. So we played it very sort of serious. But yeah, no, it's designed that way. It's designed specifically to get reintroduced to Sam, know a little bit about her and what was going on between her mom and herself and her grandmother, see where she is emotionally. Her friends are there to support her. And we see bits and I had this one guy say, Sam seems kind of depressed through the film. I was like, well, yeah,
grandma just died.
I said she is. Her mother's dead. Her grandmother's dead. She is. And then there's moments where you see kind of her, like at the dinner table. She kind of comes to life a little bit, right? Just a little bit. You see a little bit of her because her friends are bringing that out. But then, of course, she goes back to that kind of.
Yeah, we chose to make it very much grounded in the performances as best as we could, like to try to make the characters, you know.
Well, the best you can do in 42 minutes.
Well, but add a level of realism to it too. Yeah. So it's not a sensationalized story in that way. It's a lot more grounded, I would say, in comparison.
Yeah. No, exactly. It's just trying to be more nuanced and you know, allow the audience to really kind of get to know who these characters are in a relatively short period of time.
Yeah, I get that. Some of it was maybe a little much for me, dialogue-wise and exposition-wise, but I get it though.
No, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. Like just an example, just so you know what I'm talking about. And feel free if you guys have any points you want to make on the live stream that I did talk about. I can't remember what I said for a lot of that, but if you guys,
I did watch a bit of it. That's why I reached out to you, but refresh my memory because I can't remember.
I'll have to refresh my memory again. I'm not too much younger than you, Dave. But you know, one of the things that Sam said a few times is that Jess made a lot of money. Her grandma made a lot of money. I don't feel like you necessarily had to say that. I don't, because the big house implies it. Agnes or Mrs. Crane pretty much says how she, I just felt like it was a little bit too much. I don't think that Sam had to say it per se. Whereas I thought you got enough, that the big house was enough. The book stuff was enough. And, you know, Miss Crane being a big fan was enough. So that's just a little bit, it's a nitpicky thing. It's a tiny nitpicky thing, but at the same time, you know,
as far as I know, I think that was only mentioned once. And it was mentioned at the dinner table when Sam
in the car too. In the beginning.
In the beginning, she says,
"My grandma made a lot of money." I can't remember the exact line. My grandma made a lot of money.
Oh no, I see what you're saying. No, it was no. It was it was in reference to her grandmother. I know what you're saying. And then she ends with including that house. I forget what the first part of it was.
I don't remember exactly
what
but
the first line.
I understand the point that you're making.
It just felt a little bit too much. I felt like you could have toned back some of that, just a tad. But you know, I'm being nitpicky, guys.
No worries.
Right.
I can nitpick at my favorite film of all time. I can nitpick at any film, you know.
Right. Well, yeah. No. Absolutely. No. I didn't feel that way about it because it was driven. It was driven by her emotion, and it had specific intent behind it. Sure, I agree that it didn't need to be, like, you could have just left it out. But I think there's a difference between, in my opinion, there's a difference between a dialogue that is said, that is, and again, people might interpret it differently, said that comes across as it's clearly being said for the audience. But I think it's a balance. I think if it feels natural that a character would say this during this moment or during this time, then I think it comes across as more organic that way, right? And I think in the middle of Sam's emotional state, and she's communicating with her friends, and she's talking about, but she made a lot of money though. you know, and but that wasn't good enough for my mom and her bad habit. You know, for us when we were writing, that I believe Sam would say something like that, because she's making an overall arcing point about how it's an area of contention between her and her mom. So it's not just to say, hey, grandma made a lot of money, look at the house. It was to specifically point out that this was an area of contention as well. It's not that just that she was rich. This was specifically an area that was problematic. And you know, the whole idea of what happened to Jess after, and writing the book, becoming famous and making a lot of money, and then writing a few other books. And it was a big area of contention. So I think the character motivation to say it makes sense, rather than just say, wow, this is a big home. Yeah, she made a lot of money. Well, then it's kind of like, well, yeah, because it's a big home. We know she made a lot of money. it's a big home, right? Yeah. But I think for me anyway, and Bruce can chime in if he wants. I feel that it's justified because it's of the motivation behind it. It's more about the feelings of Sam and the relationship with her mother and her grandmother than it is to let the audience know that she was rich.
Yeah. To me, it did feel more natural at the table scene than it did in the car. To me, the car it felt like exposition. I just remember it felt to me it felt a little bit unnatural. For me, a lot of that car scene felt a little bit unnatural. First, I also have to ask, why were they just parked on the side of the street? I thought that when the movie starts, I thought that they were broken down or something. You know, I wasn't quite putting the pieces
right. So the line was, I have it up here. No. The line was, my grandma made a fortune on something people were trying to forget, including that house. Right. I disagree. I disagree with the dialogue and they're part, like, you have to remember that you're being thrust into the middle of something, right? So this is why they're parked on the side of the road becomes like, to know specifically becomes irrelevant, because it's clearly communicated, at least in my opinion, that when you cut into the car, how you communicate is through the tension of what's not being said. So if we were to jump into the car and they were having a joyous conversation about Mark and Chris and we're so excited, then it would be like, why are you parked on the side of the road? You know, that doesn't, I don't understand why you can't be having this joyous conversation driving to the house, right? But when you cut inside the car, and you know, this is sort of where the cinematic language comes in, where nobody's speaking to each other. Emma's looking out the window, Sam's fidgeting with her phone, Justine is kind of sitting there looking out the window, looking back. Nobody's saying anything for a good, I don't know how long it is, it feels like maybe 30 seconds. Clearly, at least we believe that we are trying to communicate that there was, you know, there's some tension in the car here. You can see it on their faces, you can see it, and you know, this could likely be the reason why they've stopped, they've pulled over. How many times have we been in the car with friends or with our spouses where we're getting into a heated argument or a discussion and we got to pull the car over and talk? You know what I mean? Because you can't have that conversation when you're trying to drive. You know what I mean? Or you can't, it's too emotional. So I think that was our logic behind it, was when we were to cut into the car, it was very important. We cut in and it has to be, why are they on the side of the road? You know, exactly what you said. We cut in and everybody's quiet and Sam looks pissed off. And then it's like, are you okay? The first line out of her mouth is, are you okay? So she's communicating to Sam and asking Sam, are you okay? I just wish we had gotten in, you know? So we are immediately told, well, clearly she's frustrated, right? I just wish we'd gotten in. Such bullshit, you know? And so for us, it communicates very clearly, well, they're parked on the side of the road because there's some sort of emotional, maybe they had a fight, maybe they were driving and Sam was like, fuck this, just pull it up. You know what I mean? There's some sort of tension that was there. But I agree with you though, in the sense that if we were to cut into the car and they were like, do you believe that he was totally wearing sneakers? Oh, why can't they be having this joyous conversation driving. That doesn't, I don't, well, why are you parked? Right. But for me and for us, that was sort of the creative intent behind that. And then, you know, we wanted to give insight into, of course, I mean, yes, as I've said on my channel, it is a bit of a tip to us not getting the Black Christmas house. But again, it's not, you can't just have it. You can't just throw that in there for the sake of it, right? You know, it was our way of getting the Black Christmas house in the film without having it in the film. But you also have to, what's the catalyst? What's the purpose of them having this conversation? It's another thing that Sam is denied, right? It's an opportunity. Sam wanted to go into the house. Her grandmother talked about it all the time. My grandmother used to talk about it all the time, right? She wanted to go in and see it now that she's dead, supposedly. And being denied access to that has upset her. She feels she's being denied that part, being denied to be able to grieve that part of her grandmother. Yeah. And again, these are the nuances that we, you know, we don't spell it out for the audience because we want the audience to be astute enough to maybe pick up on it. And maybe it takes a couple of times to watch it for, you know, for certain people, I don't know. And then some people may not like it at all. I mean, it's entirely a creative choice. But it wasn't just about, you know, that dialogue was essentially, that scene was essentially written in a few various ways before we were denied access to the Black, you know, Christmas house.
Yeah.
It just would
always exist. Yeah.
Yeah. That scene would always exist.
Form.
It was just an opportunity to kind of put that in there as, hey, you know what? Let's add this because that's kind of it's a cute little thing, right? But it also really the heart of it is Sam is upset. She's been denied access, and you see that again, that emotion to the porch scene and then to the dining room scene and how she's really sort of suffering through that. So that was the intention behind it anyway. Yeah. Bruce, anything you wanted to
add? Well, just, you know, on the premise that it's a short film, and one of the key elements to try to make a short film successful from a writing and directing standpoint is you have to remember you have very limited time to tell your story. Even in a feature film, people think that there's a lot of time. You actually realize there isn't as much time as you maybe think. True. So you've got to dive right in. And it was the direction that we gave the characters was where the audience is entering into a space of this tension where there was clearly an argument. There was clearly some sort of heated something that happened moments before. And we're entering into this space with you during that cool down where Sam's sort of pissed off and, you know, they're just, things are a bit on edge. And then we're watching the diffusion of the moment and kind of stepping in. And so through that, it was like how it's the layers to it, right? The emotional layer, where we're coming from, where we are, and then how that's going to lead us to where we're going in terms of the story as well as the character's journey. And at the same time, complement that with, how do I say it? I guess with what's actually happening, like with their, sorry, it's kind of losing the train of thought, but hopefully it makes sense. It's really about the layers of it.
Because you want to treat you want to treat your audience, you know, it's about adding, it's about cinematic language and not spilling everything sort of verbatim. And Bruce is right. You know, when you're doing a short film, again, it all depends on what you're telling and the design of it, but we wanted to jump right into a moment. And we believe anyway, that it's very clear that again, when you cut in and you realize there's all this tension in the car, it makes sense why the car is parked on the side of the road. You know, it feels for us, that's not a conversation. It's the lack of what's being said that is being spoken to the audience. And you see that all the time in films. I mean, there's many films that I see that will cut into a scene and they'll be parked on the side of the road and they won't be talking or they'll be having a serious, you know, conversation or what have you. And we haven't seen them pull over because it's spoken through the performances and what is not being said. So I think it would be, for us, it would be less so, like I said, if it was a joyous occasion and they were sitting there, although you could justify it too, but then you would have to justify it probably with dialogue. you would have to justify it with something like, when is that tow truck going to be here? Or, is your dad, coming, the flat tires? Then you'd have to justify it because they're joyous and everything is fine. Well, why are they parked on the side of the road? But when things are not joyous and things are not fine and things are very somber, that, for me anyway, as an audience and as a filmmaker, communicates to me they're pulled over because of the emotion. And they can't drive because of the emotion. And that's why they're on the side of the road. They don't need to say, when is your dad coming, the flat tire, I'm out of gas, whatever. Now we could have written that in there. I mean, you can do that, but I don't think it's necessary. I think it's extraneous.
Oh, no, I don't think that's necessary. I guess I just never really felt like through that dialogue that they had an argument either. Like if there was some argument, I felt like maybe there would be some apologies or something. Sorry, I yelled at you or whatever. I'm upset about the situation. I don't know. I guess I just didn't really feel like there was that there was an argument. So, but I could see it though. I mean, I guess I could see it when you look at it closely, but on first view, it's like, why are they pulled over? You have to watch it to say enough times I'd have to watch it enough times to say, okay, could have there been an argument there beforehand? I just wasn't feeling that there was an argument. It felt like everybody was just sad, and they're pulled over because they're sad. I don't know. But again, it's a small nitpick though, guys.
Sadness, I mean, to your point, I mean, sadness, I mean, maybe they are sad, right? Sadness is another layer of disappointment, right? I mean, so, you did pick up on it. I mean, your interpretation of it may have been different, right? But it's not like you were like, oh, I thought they were having a good time. I mean, you're astute and you picked up on, you said it yourself. Oh, I thought they were just kind of sad, right? So you did pick up on the down tone of the emotion.
Up on that, yeah.
Your interpretation was sadness, not necessarily maybe a fight. I don't know. Somebody else might be like, oh, I thought it was kind of tense. You know what I mean? There's different levels of that interpretation, but certainly, I mean, sadness, anger, disappointment. I mean, that's probably rampant through the car. It's fair. It's fair. Yep.
That's all good. Does anybody have any questions before we go? I think I did see one question. Where did I see that?
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. A lot of happy birthdays.
Yeah, a lot of happy birthdays. Christian Spencer, how did you guys do the POV shots? Was it Steadicam?
Oh, so, well, yeah.
Take it away, Bruce.
Yeah, the POV shots were done with a few things. We used the Ronin 2, which is a body rig for folks that aren't familiar. The camera gets rigged to it. It has a suspension and tension adjustments, and so it's a whole body harness, and then with arms that come over the top, and the operator is able to do that. So Greg was operating the camera as well as being director of photography. So that's how we got any of those traveling shots, including the oneer, as we call it, the one continuous shot that starts upstairs and goes all the way to the front door. And then the other thing that we did is we wanted to give a distinct look to the POV shots, so you could tell that it is the point of view of Billy. And we used a type of, they're called lens baby, and it's a specific type of lens that has, how do I describe it? Yeah, it's a distorted field of view where the outer edges, I don't know if you're familiar with it, Steve, but there's like a type of lens that it will articulate, right? It's almost like there's a joint in it, or it sort of pivots, and you can shift it just slightly. So this is the cinema grade version of it, and it does the same thing. So the effect that happens is you're shifting the focus within the frame. So instead of the entire picture being in focus, it's just a portion of it. And so there's a lot of adjustment and tweaking that we did. And
I believe you can do that on the fly too, can't you?
You can adjust. Yeah, well, it's kind of tricky. You'd have to have a separate operator doing that. And it's anything's possible. But anyway, that's how we did it. It was the combination of the lens baby to create the visual effect. That was all done in camera. That's not a post-production effect. And then using the Ronin 2. Yeah. Cool.
That's right. That's right. And shout out again to our amazing crew for that oneer shot, because that was one shot. I mean, we shot it 8 times, but it was one shot. And that was, again, it was designed that way. Bruce and I talked about that for months. And we wanted to, and shout out to Greg, of course, who was, I was picking his brain one day and I was like, do you think people will notice? And and he's like, listen, if we do it right, they shouldn't.
That's
and I'm like,
That's
right, of course. And but just, I mean, our crew had to light, I mean, first of all, Sam's bedroom, and then the hallway, and then the second floor landing, Justine's room, and then the big bay window, the stairs, and then the bottom of the stairs, and then the living. And there were, I don't know,
complex shot.
The lighting must have been. How long did it take to light that, by the way?
So that was
our first night day, right?
Yeah, and it was about 5 to 6 hours worth of shooting, like setup and shooting time combined.
Yes.
About 5 to 6 hours just to get that one shot.
Yeah.
And then,
but I mean, it was worth it.
Imagine shooting something like that back in the old days. Like that would have taken a long. In fact, I think I saw Albert Duncan in an interview, the last shot of Black Christmas. Before going up into the attic. I think he said it took 8 hours just to light it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I can believe it.
And there are ways that we would have, like, again, with the higher budget, there would have been different lighting instruments we would have chosen, because we were restricted to having a whole series of smaller lighting fixtures, and wrapping the house with those, but to create the sense that it is all coming from one source. And that was one of the key challenges of it. But I think they did a great job. And, shout out to Nikita, our gaffer. He led the rest of the grip and electric team to, really get it in place. And we're going to end up releasing some BTS footage. We've got about an hour BTS movie that's going to go on the Blu-rays for the folks that purchase those. And we plan to release some pieces of that online as well. And there's a bit of that the segment that shows some of the setup and them raising the lights and just kind of what it looked like on the outside of the building.
It was incredible to watch.
It's pretty neat.
And to achieve, and shout out to, Victoria, who did great as well, and walked, and got to her mark in front of the window, and Justine, you know what I mean? And because it's not easy. It's not, you think it's easy because, well, I'm just walking, all the work's being done but it's not. I mean, you're in the zone, you gotta, you can't break character. You have to hit your mark, and she did every time. And she was, I mean, they all were fantastic, but I mean, it was a great shot. And it's about a minute and 49 second shot without cutting. A minute and 49 second tracking shot without cutting. Yeah. So it's
tough to do.
Pretty awesome.
Tough to pull
tough
off.
to do.
Tough to pull those off in multi-billion-dollar movies. So they do though. They do.
Yeah, they do.
Christian also asked, which I think I know the answer to this one. Would you guys ever make a Jason Freddy movie in the future?
No.
Like, is them pitted against each other, or?
Oh no, I think he just means like a fan film. No,
a Jason / Freddy. So I don't know if that's both of them or just one or the other.
I think it's just one or the other. I would say fan film, no. Although I am playing Freddy in a fan film. Yeah. But if somebody came to me and said, we want you to really do the real thing, well, I'm not going to turn that down,
Yeah, same.
I don't think it'd be a bad choice, Dave. By the way, did you do the voice in that teaser they released a while back? Was that your voice?
It was my voice. It was, yes, it was my voice. And there's a little bit of processing on it, a little bit of pitching, but there's pitching on Robert Englund too, but not a lot though. There wasn't a lot. We're still in the trying to find. Cecil's still trying to find where he wants it to be. But yes, that was me in that trailer they released. God, almost 2 years ago now. It's hard to believe.
I mean, I thought it was a year ago.
And it was November of 2019. We were supposed to shoot Dylan's New Nightmare way before It's Me, Billy. Like we were going to shoot Dylan's New Nightmare before we even launched the It's Me, Billy Indiegogo campaign.
Yeah. They were going to do it I think it was
May.
Yeah, spring of 2020.
Yeah, and then it got delayed because of COVID, and then they're running another campaign at the moment. Right now, it's who knows what's going to happen with the U.S. Canada border, but it's possible we may go to camera on Dylan's New Nightmare this fall, but that's still up in the air.
Yeah, it's possible for me to go to camera this fall too, but I'm really doubting it. I'm really because our Canadian border's not open yet.
I know, it's insane.
I can't even. Apparently, they're going to announce it on July 21st or something. I heard last time.
They'll probably announce on July 21st that it's closed until August 21st. That's probably what they're gonna, and they're just gonna keep doing.
That's what they're gonna say. They keep doing that over and over again. So I mean, I'm if I don't hear a clear consensus of the border is opening by October, then I am definitely pushing my film to March. Of next year, because I'm not going to shoot a Texas Chainsaw Massacre film in the wintertime. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't feel right to do that. And they had snow in Texas last winter.
That's right. That's right.
We actually filmed our footage in Texas the first day it snowed in Texas, and I had to rewrite my entire shot list to make it all interior instead of because it was mostly exterior, and I was directing over video chat. Obviously, I can't direct. Couldn't go to Texas, but that was an interesting experience. But the COVID compliance officer phones me that morning and says it's covered in snow here. And I'm like,
my God,
what do I do?
Yeah.
Wow.
Right?
Jesus.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
We made it work.
Got to figure out something.
Yeah, exactly. But hey, maybe it worked out for the best because people love the teaser. So
maybe it did.
Maybe it
did.
It was a blessing in disguise.
It's kind of like the snow we got for It's Me, Billy. I mean, that snow.
Yeah, that was serendipitous. That whole thing.
Was that snow. It started to snow the day we arrived. We weren't shooting because we had 2 travel days, and we drove up on the Sunday. It's about 4.5 hours from Toronto, and about 4 hours actually. And when we got there, it wasn't snowing, but then about 2 hours later, it started to kind of, you started to see some flurries, and we're like, oh, by the next morning, it looked the way it did in the film. And we're like, this is crazy.
That's awesome.
Like, this is, thank you, movie gods.
Yeah. They blessed us for sure.
It does look great. It definitely does look great. That's for sure. There you go. Eric from He's Crafty. I think this is pretty much the last comment. Hey Steve, happy birthday! Yeah. The minute plus shot and It's Me, Billy, so awesome, well done. Kudos on making an excellent, awesome looking film. Very impressive. I used to rock Atari 2600. We were talking about video games earlier.
Oh, I
I
see.
used to rock the 2600 as well.
Oh, right.
River Raid. I was a River Raider for that.
Oh yes, yeah. We had the Atari. We had the Atari.
Yeah. I remember that. I love the joystick. Cool. It was super cool.
I
want to get another Atari t-shirt. I used to have one for a little bit, and then I don't know what happened to it, but I'd love to get another one. I just love the logo. It's just a great graphic. Yeah.
That'd be cool. But who was that sent that in?
Eric Crafty. He's
Eric. Thank you,
buddy of mine on Instagram.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you for the compliment. We appreciate that. Yeah. No, the response has been great. Like, I mean, you can't please everybody, but at the end of the day, the feedback has been great, and with people saying, hey, it's the best Black Christmas thing we've got since the original. So I'm like, oh, well, that's good.
The compliments are huge in that way. It means a lot. It's very humbling too, and it's just it's cool.
And even though I have my nitpicks, at the end of the day, just remember, I did like the movie. I do like it. But
cool.
No, that's cool. That's cool.
I'm a bit more of a critic than most people are, and I hope nobody thought that I hated it or anything.
No, not at all.
Look,
it's as a filmmaker, like that's an area where we relate, right? Because it's like we also understand all the work that goes into it and the creative choices, and being a filmmaker yourself, you've got your own vision of things as well. Like it's it makes sense. It makes sense.
No, it makes sense, right? I mean, when the Sawyer Massacre finally gets released, I look forward to seeing it, and there might be things that I'm like, I don't know if I would have done that, Steve.
Yeah, you never know.
I don't know if I would have done that. Steve, I just don't know.
You know what I get? You know what I get from a lot of fans is, why isn't Chop Top going to be a part of this? Who was a big character in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2? And I hated Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, so I understand why people love that movie. I personally hated it, so I don't want to have anything to do with that character. But
what you do is
that people have for
You have to
Yeah,
take
like
risks.
if I made a
off,
Star
you know?
Wars film, there isn't going to be any blue milk in it. There just isn't.
Oh, really? You don't like the blue milk thing? That didn't bother me.
I think it's
Really? That
fucking
that doesn't bother. That's when I thought you were gonna say there's not gonna be any like
no. It doesn't bother
Ryan
me in A
Johnson
New
shit.
Hope. It doesn't bother me in A New Hope. It bothers me
okay.
in The Last Jedi. The whole.
when
What
they're
bothered me was
spoon-feeding it to
Luke
you.
sucking on the alien's tit. That's what
Yeah.
bothered me. That was just
Yeah.
like, what the hell? Not
No.
sucking on the tit, milk. Sucking on.
Yeah. I was like, I don't remember that happening.
Can you imagine?
Guys, if we get into The Last Jedi, we're going to be here all night.
I know. I'm
yeah,
saying,
most
can you
definitely.
can you imagine? Can you imagine
I have
Luke?
my issues.
Yeah.
No,
You and
but
me
I
both, Steve. Yeah.
I was gonna. I've been very vocal about it. But I will say that no, it's look, it is what filmmakers have to do is they have to commit to their choices, and they have to believe in the choices that they commit to. And I've always believed in this, that as long as there are reasons, concrete reasons that you can articulate for the creative choices that you make, that's all you can do. And not everybody is going to agree with you. But if somebody was to say, like yourself, tonight, so why did you guys do that? I found that interesting. Why did you decide to do that, instead of this? And Bruce and I looked at each other and went, I don't know. Just fucking felt like it, and then that's a problem, that's a problem, right? But
That would be a problem, yes.
that would be a problem. But as you know, as a filmmaker, as a writer, you have to write something, commit to it because you believe in it, because this is how you see it. This is the vision for what you see, and you put it out there and you let the chips fall where they may. And some people are going to see it your way and be like, yeah, and then others are going to be like, I don't know. You know what I mean? That's just the nature of art and film and all that kind of stuff. And sometimes you put things out there that most people see it the same way. And then sometimes you put shit out there where you're like, oh, yes. And nobody sees it your way. And you're like, what the fuck? I mean, there's been videos I've been like, oh, people are going to fucking love this. This is because views are going to, and it fucking tanks. I'm like, what the hell? What's going on? How come this? I don't get it. And then I'll put up a video. I'm just like, whatever. Like, and then suddenly it gets like, 10,000 views. I mean, it's just, you just don't know, where the climate is, where the wind's blowing, you know what I mean? And who knows, but no, I mean, there's been nothing you've said that hasn't been professional. There's been nothing you've said that hasn't been articulated well. And you are a filmmaker who is questioning our creative, not questioning, but being inquisitive about, interested in the creative decisions that we made. And then we as filmmakers take that and say, well, here's why we made those choices. And that's part of the process of being a filmmaker and being an artist is getting excited to share your ideas with other people. And sometimes they'll agree and sometimes they won't. But you have to commit to your choices, like actors have to commit to their choices, right? When you are performing, when you're an actor and you're in a role, you have to commit to your choice. Go with it. If it's wrong, then it's up to the director to say, let's try something, different. But if you're not committing to your role or your choices, then the performances won't be believable. So it's it's been fun to be able to share this with you. I think it's been great.
Yeah, as a big Black Christmas fan, it was my most anticipated film this year, and it probably still is. I'm not sure if I'm going to like Halloween Kills as much now, I have to say. I know a lot of people love that trailer, but I don't know. I'm on the fence now. I'm on the fence
Steve,
now,
if we start talking about Halloween Kills, we'll be here all
not
night.
I didn't see Black Christmas till I was in my 30s, I'll be honest. And
right.
Since I did see it, it became my number 2 favorite horror film after the original Chainsaw, which both came out in 74, by the way.
They did. Yeah.
Coincidence? Yeah, it's a coincidence.
Yeah, I think so.
And then Halloween became my number 3. Halloween was always my number 2 after Texas Chainsaw. But I was like, when I saw Black Christmas, I was like, how the hell did I never see this film? And every time I would go back and watch it, I would listen to those phone calls of Billy, and I would felt like I was always discovering something new about the character just through those phone calls. Very, very deep, very, very deep character. Underrated, in my opinion. He's a very, very underrated killer, and nobody talks about him. And
I think it is
he's one of the best. You know,
I think so too, and that's one of the reasons why Bruce, you know, we approach the character of Billy so seriously. Like again, I mean, whether you agree, and when I say you, I don't mean you. I'm talking about you know, the collective you. Whether you agree with the creative decisions that we made with him or not, you know, we took it seriously. You know, what are we going to do with this character? You know, how do we bring this character into a sequel? How do we sequelize Billy without just doing the same thing over again? And then by the end of the movie, you kind of feel like, well, that was just kind of the same thing. You know what I mean? And how do we present the same thing, but adding a different layer to it, and keeping it Billy, and keeping those hidden clues in the phone calls? You know, there's things in those.
Listen more to your phone calls.
You do.
I think I need to watch it with subtitles. You got to have a subtitle version. I tell you, when I watched the original Black Christmas with subtitles, because my mother-in-law has to have subtitles on because her hearing's not very good. We watched it once with subtitles. I learned even more new stuff.
Don't believe everything you read in subtitles, because as we know, the subtitles for the original Halloween had Laurie saying, "Was that the boogeyman?" And she doesn't say that. She says it was the boogeyman. We know all about that. So, and that changes the fun. I mean, getting that wrong changes the whole thing, the whole message of the movie. So,
Steve, I was going to say, if you watch it again, watch it with headphones. Because
I actually did. The first time I watched it, I watched it with headphones. But there's definitely a few things I'm like, I can't make out what you're saying. You layer your voice too much, Dave. I know. I love it, though. I love that you hear multiple voices, because that, to me, that's part of Billy. It's a multiple personality disorder, and it really sells that kind of a character. So I definitely love that aspect of it. But I'm gonna have to, because I want to see if I can figure out why he didn't kill Jess. I want to. We understand that he didn't do it. We hear he let her go. I feel like I want to figure out why. Maybe I'll find out for sure in the sequel.
Well, that's we need to complete our story. We need to complete our story.
But the subtlety, if there's like little hints, I'm going to be looking for them. Okay,
there's subtleties.
I feel like there should be. I feel like there has to be some hints as to these things.
I mean, look, just remember that if you're not paying attention, again, when I say you, I don't mean you. If you're not paying attention, you know, when Sam is in the attic and she looks at that desk, you know, and it's kind of tracking across, there's been people that have, because we've been very nuanced with it. I mean, some might argue maybe a little too nuanced, perhaps. But, you know, there's that manuscript that's there that says Peter's innocence. And there's maybe, you know, there's been a lot of people have been like, really, that I didn't even notice that. I'm like, it's there.
I didn't catch that on first watch, but I think it caught it on the second or third watch.
Right.
There's some choices that we made to like make it, like more. It's different than your traditional kind of horror movie in that way, I think, because it's pulling in some aspects of other genres into it and creating this blend, this hybrid, and that might be an element too that might catch some folks off guard, because you know you kind of go into it expecting one thing, but again, that's part of what we chose to do. You know, we kind of try to give it a bit of that Stanley Kubrick vibe as well, and Alfred Hitchcock vibe in certain areas, and you know, just with angle choices that we made, and you know, sound choices and camera movement, and even lens choices for the camera lended itself to that, and just the pacing of the editing. Some of the moments, like she's coming down the hall, the hallway of red, you know. And then going upstairs with all the Christmas lights on the floor, like it's that cinematic
creative
language, moments,
right? It's that shot from back at, you know, the end of the hall when we see Sam come into frame, and the stairs are to the left over here with the lights going up the stairs. She's coming from a cool, dark environment into a red, more ominous environment. And that's the point of no return. You know, red means evil, stop, go back, warning, you know, and all that is intentional. You know, those are the layers. That's the cinematic language that is there, that, you know, somebody who's astute like yourself may pick up on, but the average person may not, but it's going to tap into them subconsciously. subconsciously. You know, I was talking about this on my show a couple of weeks ago, even where we place the camera when we open the shot of the dining room, right?
Yes,
And where the
I
phone
saw that,
is.
actually.
Oh, you saw the episode?
Yeah, that live you did, the cinematic language.
Yeah, and so
I apologize for that guy that was giving you a hard time.
all that, yeah.
I've seen that guy a few times.
I know. I got a little hot because I had just finished
Don't
talking
worry.
for an hour,
I know.
and I was like, dude, like, you know, you can only do this because I can't punch you in the face. Like, I mean, if you like, you wouldn't walk into a lecture hall and be like, oh, this sucks. You wouldn't do that. You can't. You wouldn't do that in college, university. You know what I mean? Anyway,
No kidding.
But that being said, you know, but it's those things, right? Where when we are in the living room in the daytime and we track along and you look at where we are in proportion to the phone. And then of course, when we open on the dining room and, you know, we're at that same level, and then where we settle is basically where the phone would be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so in a way that is Billy is the representation of the phone, or the phone is the representation of Billy, right? His presence is there. He's watching the girls in a way that's the phone is watching him, them. Right. And so those are the layers that, again, that the average person's not going to think of. And they're not necessarily supposed to, right? You're just supposed to enjoy the movie, whatever.
Yeah. But we thought about these things.
But we thought about that's how deep we went, you know,
there was this voyeuristic vibe to the composition of some of the shots that's right. To Dave's point, like that's an example of one of them. Because that was something that we picked up on from the original Black Christmas. There is that voyeuristic aspect to it, you know, looking through windows and just the creepiness of it, and this guy creeping these girls like it's you know, and so we wanted to add some maturity to it, with the way that we wanted to express it visually, and this is how we chose to present it. So no, exactly. And even the shot across the table, you know, when Sam begins to kind of say, you know, something's been bothering me though, and it always has ever since my grandma told me, you know, again, that movement. I mean, we could have shot, we were in a three shot up to that moment, right? We're in a medium close up for the entire scene, until Sam begins to talk about her grandmother, and then we track across the table, and that slow track in is bringing the audience in closer, right? The audience is sort of leaning in to Sam. Maybe they're at the other end of the table and they're leaning into Sam. So we're bringing the audience in closer. And that's, again, the average person doesn't think about these things. You're not supposed to. But as filmmakers, as Bruce said, you know, this is how deep we went. These are the thought process we had. And if it's done well, and if it's done right, these are the layers that seep into the audience's subconscious. And I know that sounds like a bit of a scapegoat to say that, but if you are, you know, if you do craft your shots and think about them and the story you're telling through the lens, you can affect your audience in ways that they don't even realize. They can feel cinematic language isn't, you know, a verbal language per se. It can be, but it's more of a feeling through symbolism and nuances and layers. And if you can make your audience feel something, they might not understand why they're feeling it. They may not know the answer to it. You know? They may not have the answer, but they're feeling something, you know, and that's, we want it to be very mature that way, you know, because I think the original film deserves that.
Definitely. Lazy Reviewer asks, what will your next project be? How are you guys doing for time, by the way? Well, you know, I'm good for a few more minutes, but
I'm good for just a few more minutes.
We'll take a couple more questions and we'll call it a night. Thank
you
for the questions. So now you guys ask questions.
Next project is, I mean, what we're working on right now is getting all the perks fulfilled for our Indiegogo campaign. And then we're just letting the film breathe for a bit and accumulate views and kind of see where we are at the end of the summer. And then of course, you know, you're going to hit Halloween, you're going to hit Christmas. So, you know, we hope it'll get some impact and some views there. And then, I mean, we definitely want to be able to bookend this story. it would be something we want to do. Whether that's the immediate next thing we do, I don't know. There's a variety of different levels too, right? Like I mean, maybe it's the next big thing we do, like another 60,000 thing, but maybe the very, very next thing we do is something smaller, something maybe we shoot on our phones or what have you, right? So yeah, we're not quite sure yet.
Yeah. There's a bunch of ideas that, we've always got, between the two of us, we each have our own ideas that we're always sort of thinking of and jotting down, and the creative juices are always flowing. And there's some recent story ideas that we talked about, and of course we each have a feature film idea that's always sitting there waiting, should the opportunity ever come up.
Collecting dust.
So it's,
I've got a few of those.
So
I got a few
same
scripts
kind of
sitting
thing
there.
Yeah. But it's good to have those, because then at least you've got them, and then there's a few ideas for different projects, I think.
Yeah.
Very cool.
For sure.
Miss Carter, hey, Mr. Merlo, hey, how you doing, Miss Carter? Christian Spencer, we'll make this the last question of the night there, guys. Okay. Dave, did you have an alternate ending to It's Me, Billy? Dave and Bruce, I guess. Do you have an alternate ending?
I don't think we had an alternate ending, but we did. We will say this, that if Bruce and I had no intention of continuing the story, right? Because some people have been like, oh, why would you just end it like that? And so that's it. That's the end. And it's totally understandable, right? You have to judge it, as is. And some people may not know that it's designed to be that way. Although I think it's kind of like, come on, guys, clearly this is.
I do think it's obvious. Yeah.
I think it's obvious that it's left open for a sequel. I mean, what movie, what television show ends their episode like that, and do you have to question
still going on? That
do you have to question that? Like really, you'd be like, oh, I guess this is set up for a sequel, right?
Yeah.
Clearly, it's set up for a sequel. However, if we have had no intention on doing that, we would have ended the film on Shelby in the back seat with the bag over her head.
Yeah.
And when we cut to black there, the credits would have rolled, and you just would have assumed that they all died.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and that would have been it. But even that would have left. Well, no,
it would have ended with the same ambiguity that the original did.
I think you're right. I think you're correct.
Yeah.
But we had such an idea of like, it kept, and it's not that we didn't contemplate perhaps ending it there, but it was this idea that was like, no, there's more we want to tell. There's a completion to this larger arc that we would love to be able to complete. So,
yeah,
very good. James Grimm says, Bruce, digging the hair. There you
cool,
go.
Thank you.
I dig it too. I really dig the hair.
Thank you.
Dig that fro, man. I wish I could do a fro. No, I mean, I got this flat hair thing going on. It's all good. So I think that's all the questions. We'll call it a night there, guys. Thank you guys so much for coming on my show, being my first guests on the show. It was a pleasure to talk with you.
That's cool.
And I hope I can come on your show sometime, Dave.
For sure, Steve. Absolutely. Yeah. No, thanks.
No pressure though. No pressure.
Yeah. No. Thanks for having us on, man. It was great to talk, and any chance we get to talk about the film that you make or whatever it is, it's always fun. It's always fun. So
yeah. Thank you for having us on. This has been great, man. It's been great.
Awesome.
And shout out to everybody who's tuned in, and thank you all for your questions. It's been
and sorry I didn't get to read everybody's birthday wishes to me tonight. Sorry I didn't get to read everybody's, but I appreciate all the birthday wishes. Thank you so much. Is that Billy singing happy birthday? Is that how?
Maybe it is. Maybe
he would sing something like that.
There you go. There's your birthday.
Anyways. There it is. All right, guys. You guys have a good night. We're just going to end it here. No, I won't even bother with the end music tonight because I have to click a million buttons. So you guys all have yourselves a good night. We'll maybe see you next week sometime if I'm not too busy. Thanks, guys. Have a good night. Thanks, Bruce and Dave, for being on my show.
No problem. Take care, everyone.